Andrew was fighting to keep his bow shop alive while caring for his ailing wife, never imagining that a stranger's quiet act of generosity would change his life forever. It was an early morning in Portland, Oregon. The small shop, Andrew's Bow and Treats, was filled with the gentle aroma of freshly steamed bow and crispy fried dough stick. But despite the inviting smells, Andrew Wong, 58, couldn't hide his exhaustion. The modest shop, nestled between a barber shop and a repair store, was once a bustling favourite, but now saw only a trickle of regular customers. The economy had tightened its grip, and Andrew's personal struggles compounded the weight. For 3 decades, he and his wife Anna had run the shop together. Anna's laughter had once filled the tiny kitchen as her skilled hands shaped every bow and fried dough stick to perfection. But now the kitchen was silent. 6 months earlier, Anna had been diagnosed with a rare and aggressive illness, and her health had deteriorated rapidly. Medical bills piled up, leaving Andrew physically drained, emotionally hollow, and financially burdened. Each morning, Andrew woke at 4 a.m. to knead dough and prep for the day, holding on to the hope that enough customers would arrive to keep the lights on. That hope was often met with the stark reality of empty hours. His hands ached from decades of labour, but the heaviest burden lay in his heart, his inability to change the path life had taken. On a cloudy Thursday morning, the overcast Portland sky seemed to mirror Andrew's sombre mood. The display case sat half empty, with just a few neatly arranged steamed pork bow and crispy golden fried dough stick, as though they were begging for attention. Leaning against the counter, Andrew wiped his flour-dusted hands on his apron, his weary eyes scanning the empty street outside. The quiet was so complete that even a tumbling leaf might have startled him. And that's when he saw him. A young man, tall and casually dressed in a black hoodie and jeans, walked slowly but with purpose toward the shop. There was something in the deliberate pace and quiet confidence of his movements that caught Andrew's attention. When the man opened the door, the gentle chime of the bell announced his arrival. "Good morning," Andrew greeted, managing a polite smile despite his fatigue. The young man nodded slightly in return. There was something striking about him. His composed demeanour and quiet kindness set him apart from the usual customers. He walked up to the counter, his sharp blue eyes scanning the display case with an intensity that seemed almost disproportionate for simple pastries. Andrew, though used to observing all kinds of people, found himself intrigued by this one. The young man didn't place an order right away. Instead, he lingered for a moment, his gaze lingering on the rows of bow and fried dough stick, as though weighing a decision far greater than what to eat. "Do you have a favourite?" he finally asked, breaking the silence. His voice was warm and calm, easing the heavy air in the shop. Andrew hesitated for a second before letting out a light chuckle. "Well, if you're asking me," he said, pointing to the tray of pork bow. "The pork bow is the most popular. People say it reminds them of the breakfasts their mothers used to make. But if you're in the mood for something crispy, the fried dough stick won't let you down." The young man nodded thoughtfully, his expression deliberate as he glanced back at the case. "How long have you had this place?" he asked, his tone genuine. Andrew raised an eyebrow in mild surprise. Most customers didn't bother asking about the shop's history. They came for their food and left without much thought. But something in the man's voice compelled Andrew to answer. "Nearly 30 years, he replied, his eyes drifting across the small space with its worn counters and peeling paint. "My wife and I built this place together. She used to handle all the decorating. She was a natural at it. Everything had her touch." Andrew's voice faltered as emotion welled up, and he quickly turned away, pretending to busy himself with rearranging napkins on the counter. The young man stood still, his gaze unwavering as though he could see right through Andrew's attempt to mask his pain. There was no judgment, just a quiet understanding that somehow filled the room with a sense of calm. The man noticed something but didn't press further. Leaning slightly on the counter, his deep voice cut through the stillness. "She doesn't work here anymore." Andrew Wong froze. He wasn't one to share personal matters with strangers, but something about this young man, perhaps his sincere gaze or calm demeanour, made it easier to open up. She's not well," Andrew admitted after a moment, his voice quiet and heavy. "Anna's been sick for a while now. These days it's just me running the shop. Keeps me busy, you know?" The man nodded, this time with a rare softness in his expression. "I'm sorry to hear that. It must be really hard." Andrew managed a faint, forced smile. "Hard or not, you do what you have to, that's life." Yet his weary eyes betrayed the burden he had carried for so long. A few seconds of silence hung in the air, broken only by the soft hum of the freezer behind the counter. The young man appeared lost in thought, his eyes shifting back to the display case with renewed focus. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he straightened, his gaze steady and clear. "I'll take them all," he said, his tone calm yet resolute. Andrew blinked, startled. "All of them? You mean all the bow?" "That's right," the man said, gesturing toward the case. "Pack them all up for me." Andrew's mouth fell slightly open, unable to believe what he was hearing. "Are you serious? That's over 5 dozen bow and Frido stick." The man smiled and pulled out a sleek black wallet. "I'm completely serious, please, pack them up." Andrew hesitated. Over the years, he had encountered pranksters, no-shows and time wasters. This felt too good to be true. "You really want all of them?" he asked, suspicion flickering in his voice. The young man locked eyes with Andrew, unwavering. "I'm not joking, Mr. Wong, trust me." Something in his voice, steady and reassuring, made Andrew relent. Without another word, he began boxing the bow and fried dough stick, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. Pork bow, vegetarian bow, crispy fried dough stick. Each item was carefully placed into the boxes as Andrew's mind raced with curiosity. Who is this man? Why does he want all of these? Throwing a big party? Andrew asked casually, trying to mask his curiosity. The man chuckled softly, shaking his head. "No, not a party. Let's just say I have my reasons." Andrew wanted to pry further, but there was a quiet confidence in the man's voice that held him back. It was as though this stranger knew exactly what he was doing and didn't feel the need to explain himself. When the last box was packed, Andrew stacked them neatly on the counter. "That'll be $235, he said, half expecting the man to back out. Without hesitation, the young man handed over his credit card. As Andrew glanced at the embossed name, his hands froze. Barron Trump. The recognition hit him like a jolt. He had seen the name on the news, but never in his wildest dreams did he imagine he would meet the person behind it, let alone in his modest bow shop. Barron seemed to notice Andrew's reaction, but said nothing. As Andrew swiped the card and handed back the receipt, Barron reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you," Barron said, sliding the envelope across the counter. Andrew stared at it, puzzled. "What's this?" "Open it later," Barron replied, his expression calm but unreadable. "And take a day off. Spend it with your wife." Andrew hesitated, shaking his head. "I can't. I need to keep the shop open. There are too many bills." "You've done enough, Mr. Wong," Barron interrupted gently but firmly. "Trust me, everything is taken care of." Before Andrew could respond, Barron effortlessly lifted the boxes, stacking them with surprising ease, and walked to the door. The bell chimed softly as he exited, leaving Andrew standing there, the envelope still clutched in his hand. For a moment, Andrew couldn't move. The surrealness of what had just happened was overwhelming. Finally, curiosity got the better of him, and he tore open the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a stack of cash. The note read, "Andrew, your story touched me deeply. You reminded me of what truly matters in life: family, love, and resilience. Use this for whatever you need, whether it's caring for Anna or simply finding a moment of peace. You deserve it. Wishing you all the best, Barron." Andrew's hands trembled as he counted the money. $10,000. He sank onto a nearby stool, his breath catching in his throat. Andrew wasn't the kind of man who cried easily. But in that moment, the weight of his struggles and the unexpected kindness of a stranger crashed over him like a wave. Anna was resting in her familiar armchair by the window when Andrew walked in. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the glass, casting a warm glow over her frail frame. Her tired eyes lit up the moment she saw her husband. "Andrew, you're home early today," she said, her voice as gentle as a soft breeze. Andrew knelt beside her, placing a box of freshly made bao on the small table. "Something incredible happened today," he said, his calloused hand reaching for hers. "A customer came in and bought every single bao and fried dough stick in the shop. But that's not all. He left a gift, enough to cover your treatments for months." Tears welled up in Anna's eyes as she clasped Andrew's hand tightly, too moved to speak. "Who would do such a thing for us?" she finally managed to ask, her voice trembling. Andrew hesitated, unsure if she'd even believe him. Finally, he said, "Baron Trump." Anna froze, her mouth slightly open in astonishment. The two of them stared at each other in silence, the shock and newfound hope filling the space between them. For the first time in what felt like forever, Andrew felt a glimmer of true hope. He spent the rest of the day by Anna's side, reminiscing about their early days building the bakery together, sharing stories about familiar customers, and laughing over the small, silly moments they once cherished. It wasn't just a day off, it was a lifeline, a reminder of why they had always kept fighting. The next morning, Andrew reopened the bakery, still bewildered by what had transpired. He hadn't shared Barron's generosity with anyone, yet somehow the story had spread. A local journalist, who had coincidentally been present when Barron visited, had posted the story on social media. When Andrew unlocked the door, he was stunned to see a line of customers stretching down the block. "Everyone's heard about what that young man did for you," a smiling woman said as she placed an order for 50 fried dough stick. "I'll send them to my niece's school. His actions remind me how important it is to support the people who make up our community." Other customers echoed her sentiments. They came not just for the pastries, but to express their encouragement and solidarity. That week, Andrew's bakery was busier than it had been in years. By the weekend, he had sold out nearly all the bao and fried dough stick. A regional news station even stopped by to interview him. The once struggling bakery had transformed into a beacon of hope and compassion. In the days that followed, Andrew realized that Barron's gift wasn't just financial. It was a profound reminder of the power of kindness, how even the smallest gestures could create monumental change. Every day, customers shared their stories at the bakery. Some said they'd been inspired to donate to local charities. Others volunteered their time for community causes. A few even started random acts of kindness campaigns in their neighbourhoods. Andrew's bakery was no longer just a place to sell bao and fried dough stick. It had become a hub of hope and connection, where people came not only for pastries, but to spread and receive kindness. One quiet Friday morning, Andrew sat at a small table in the bakery, a warm cup of coffee in his hand. Across from him, Anna smiled, her cheeks rosier than they had been in months. Thanks to the treatments, her health was improving, and she even occasionally helped Andrew fry fried dough stick during busy days, something she hadn't been able to do for a long time. "You know," Anna said, her voice filled with gratitude, "what that young man did reminds me that the world isn't as cold as it sometimes feels." Andrew nodded, his gaze drifting to Barron's handwritten letter, now framed and hanging near the register. Beneath it was a simple plaque that read, "Kindness doesn't just change a moment, it changes lives." This story has touched your heart. We'd love for you to share its message by liking and sharing it with your friends, helping us reach our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers, which means the world to us and allows us to create more meaningful stories for you. Don't forget to share your thoughts about the story and let us know which city you're watching from. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in our next story.